Ahoy hoy, and welcome to this slightly later episode of the Bionicle Inspiration series. With it being the day after Christmas that I'm recording this episode, and the fact that Christmas was on the day that I normally record my episodes for the week, I apologise that this episode is ever so slightly later than normal. Not by much, but it is slightly later, so I apologise for that. I always like to be consistent with the days that I post, but it is a busy time of the year for all, and Ben has had some certainly unexpected things come up. Nothing bad, really good stuff, but stuff that I legally can't talk about because I've signed documents and things. But hey, really cool stuff happening. Ben is a very busy beaver right now, and it's Christmas, a very time-consuming combination. So, apologies that this episode is a little bit later, but hey, welcome! It's the Bionicle Inspiration series. Whee! Today is episode 190. Wow, that's a lot. But every 10th episode, you know what that means. People who've watched for a while now, you know what that means. It's a fan-submitted MOCs episode. Every 10th episode, I like to just solely dedicate the episode to the fans. Like to solely include MOCs that have been submitted through the submission email, which is in the description below. But if you want to have a little more, a few more details about that, physically see the email on your screen. Stay tuned to the end of the episode. I'll talk a little bit more about it there. But like I said, yeah, we're going to look at some fan-submitted MOCs in today's episode, and we got some pretty cool ones today, actually. So, without further ado, shall we begin? I think we shall. Let's go. The first MOC we've got today is by Buttloaf Builds, as I believe he's known on Instagram, and this MOC is called Small Harassing Winged RPG Enemy Unit. A mouthful of a name, but still a name. So, well, first off, of course, this MOC is built on a little sort of miniature stand, has a cool little rock face and that really beautiful trans-clear Technic beam supporting this sort of larger winged dragon-like creature. And, of course, that is more sort of associated with little miniatures or little sort of little characters that you might use for some sort of tabletop roleplay game. As of this moment, as I'm recording this episode, it is the day after Christmas, and I will be playing some Dungeons & Dragons with my friends very soon, and we will, of course, be playing the game using some of those miniatures. And I've come to realize through my love of Dungeons & Dragons, there's such an art to a good miniature, and I think Mr. Buttloaf here has actually really effectively captured that. I won't go into too much detail, but it is something I've noticed over the more recent years and something that I've come to really love. So a little bit obsessed with that to some degree. But I love the art of a good mini, like I was saying. Essentially, I built a MOC on Flickr and Instagram. I posted it not too long ago. It was a sort of little tiny Blacktron mech. It had a little minifigure on it. Had a nice little sort of kind of jungle terrain with some like purple flowers on it and stuff. And I'd actually built that Blacktron mech quite a while ago, but it was really nice to kind of give it a new home, really give it new life on top of this little miniature base that had some landscape on it. And it kind of just gave it more kind of context, it gave it more of a life, and it gave it more just pizzazz. It looks a lot more nice and pretty and lived in, you know? And so I really like seeing that here with what Mr. Buttloaf Builds has done here, just giving it more context, giving it more life. And if you were to use this in some sort of tabletop roleplay game, you would really get the idea that, okay, you're in some sort of mountainous area where there's this sort of larger rock formation and this thing is sort of flying above those rocks, looks quite menacing. And I certainly think the inclusion of the sort of shadow behind this as well really paints it in a more sort of sinister light. You know, maybe the sun's a little bit lower, some harsher shadows, you're in this sort of larger rocky canyon. And, you have reason to be afraid of this large winged creature because it's in a really scary area and it's gonna kill you. It's got a weird, crazy face that's a scorpion upside down and has weird wings and things. You should be afraid, you know? So I think that's the power of a good little stand or a good little sort of miniature base underneath a MOC is it can provide so much more sort of story, context, can really evoke emotions and stuff. And I love that. And so I think if you want to kind of look into that general concept a little bit more, really study some Dungeons & Dragons miniatures, especially some of the more sort of artistic interpretation versions made by like fans and stuff. You know, some of the official ones made by like Wizards of the Coast and stuff are, again, have that, but you see it a lot more prominently in some fan-made ones as well. So yeah, if you want to kind of look into that a little bit more, because it's certainly something the Bionicle community seems to be moving towards, is really playing with individual stands and bases for MOCs. So hey, if you kind of want to join in on that and really play with the fun of that, That might be something to look into just to get a little bit extra inspiration and some, think about some stuff, Speaking of thinking about things, not my best transition, but we'll use it as a transition. We're going to think about some of the cool pieces that have been used on this MOC. I made the transition better, guys. It's okay. I mentioned before the scorpion face. So the face for this is taking one of those cool lever pieces, and those lever pieces are technically two separate pieces. You get the piece that's being used for the eye here. It's in a yellow here. And normally they have a sort of black lever piece that comes out of it that you can actually separate if you pull on it hard enough. I believe that's a legal separation. I don't know if LEGO wants you to do that, but, well, who knows? Regardless, that's the piece that's being used for the eye here. The fact that there is a little area where the lever would be attached into kind of forms this really unique pupil for the eye. It looks really nice. And I really like how it's partnered with that scorpion head, because flipping the scorpion kind of on its side there and using it as a head makes the little like pincer claw things from the scorpion look like horns. And then the actual scorpion tail kind of looks like this weird, I don't know, really unique kind of mouth design. And again, that's something else from a lot of different characters from Dungeons and Dragons and other tabletop roleplay games. A lot of the creatures can be really weird, out there, and different. Just crazy and creepy, And so I love seeing the fact that he has used that scorpion head, because, yeah, he could have built this cool brick-built dragon head or used a sort of Bionicle mask or something to give it a more traditional-looking dragon, wyvern, sort of sinister winged head kind of creature, face. But he's used a scorpion. I don't know, there's something so unique and different about that. One, it's a great use of the scorpion piece, and two, it just gives it such a distinct and different facial design. And I think there's so much power in doing that, really deliberately going against the norm, trying something totally different and out there and new, and seeing how it looks, because I think it looks really, really, really good here. I love it. Quickly, because I'm talking about this MOC for a little bit longer than I expected. I really like this one. The wings there from some older Viking sets, but those wings appear even today in some pretty more modern recent sets. They come in a whole bunch of different colors. But, rather than break your back trying to figure out a really unique wing design, almost said leg design, I don't know where that came from, why not use some of those prefab wing elements, because they work really well, especially when you can find pieces in a similar color scheme to them, because that Bionicle mask, it is Malum's mask, I believe, that is used for the torso there, it has that same sort of marbled texture that matches those wings. So those flow beautifully into one another there. Really, really, really great attention to detail with those colors. It's quite beautiful. Final thought, I briefly touched upon those Transclear Technic beams here that's being used to support this MOC. Such a good piece. It comes in some Pod Racer sets. It comes in a couple Pod Racer sets, actually. And it comes in a very recent city set that has this really cool glow-in-the-dark anglerfish. Such a beautiful piece. It's trans-clear. It's really sturdy and strong because it's a Technic beam. And if you want to have your MOC being supported or flying in that regard, definitely look into some of those pieces because they're the perfect thing for exactly that. So, love your work, Ari. You've done a fantastic job on this small, harassing winged RPG enemy unit. Great work. Let's move on to a MOC by good old Zach Sanders, and this MOC is called Dark Queen of the Rahkshi. So I kind of wanted to touch upon the concept of Rahkshi with this MOC, because Rahkshi is something I've covered a whole bunch on the Bionicle Inspiration series. I've had specific episodes focusing on Rahkshi, and you'll find a Rahkshi MOC here and there in a variety of different episodes. And ironically too, those episodes always do really well. People really like Rahkshis. And ever since they first came out in, was it 2002? Is that 2003? Look, don't quote me. I don't remember. But Rahkshi are super cool. And ever since they came out, they've almost taken on a life of their own. I feel like the community has just sort of made them become this beautiful, zeitgeist that they've just developed such a weird life of their own. Rahkshi were meant to be this sort of vessel that transported the Krata, and they were these quote-unquote sons of Makuta, and there's all this sort of Bionicle lore about them, which you can of course read on the Bionicle wiki pages, but I feel like the community made them their own thing, giving them genders and having the Dark Queen of the Rahkshis, and just, I don't know, you can find so many really unique different Rahkshi MOCs, so people have made their own stories for them and all sorts of craziness. So I love how they've just sort of developed into their own thing and just taken on a life of their own, because they were such a cool and unique design and people just really liked them, man. And, for good reason too. Rahkshi were awesome, and they still are. So, just in general, I like the fact that this MOC is called the Dark Queen of the Rahkshi and does have a more sort of, elegant armored, long flowing cape, a very silver regal look to her. Very much does look very fitting of a queen to a degree. So I really like that. But yeah, it's just I don't know. There's something that really captured me when I just read that title for the mock. They're just kind of looking back and realizing how Rahkshi have become their own unique thing. And hey, maybe that's something that can inspire you with a mock that you're coming up with. Is if you do like Rahkshi, don't be afraid to really sort of stretch the limits on what they could be. Or maybe any other sort of Bionicle concept or character. Like maybe you want to get a Visorak and really stretch the concepts of what a Visorak could be. Because, hey, Bionicle was such a rich, beautiful universe, and there's no reason you can't deviate from the lore and change some of the fundamentals of those characters and make them into your own unique story or idea, I think this is just a great example of that. I love the weapons on this mock, the little sort of wrist-mounted daggers. That's a fairly simple design, just using some Hero Factory armor, attaching those Hero Factory swords on them. I know that some of those sword pieces came on Hero Factory 3.0 sets, like Rocker had some. Rocker. Yeah, Rocker. Oh, almost forgot a name there. But hey, those pieces came on him, and they came on a variety of other sets as well. So yeah, like a simple design, it's essentially that's how those pieces were designed to be used for the most part. But it still forms a really badass, awesome-looking, almost Assassin's Creed-style hidden blade weapon thing. And it looks awesome. So again, very similar to the wing design I spoke about before on Butloaf's mock. There's no reason you can't have a very simplistic design for a part of a mock, as long as it works and looks cool. And this works and looks really cool, so heck yeah, man. I also love the torso design on this mock. It's a little bit more like kind of ornate. Got a lot more detail on it and stuff, but it kind of, like I said before, it looks like all this silver is armor of some kind, and so it kind of just makes this mock look like it's wearing very, I don't know, historic, regal armor of sorts. And again, I just kind of like that, very fitting of the name of this mock. So hey, pretty cool indeed. So yeah, really love your work there, Zach. And again, I think just a really cool concept for a character. Let's move on to the third mock in this episode. It's by Morningstar Mocks, and it's called the Seer. So I really, really like the concept for this character. The idea that there was a description on the email. What did it say? It says its gaze spans across the cosmos, watching, learning, evolving. I like that. Obviously, of course, the sort of head design is one of the more prominent parts of this mock, just being this very large eye. So, of course, I don't know, this kind of reminds me of like the Watcher from Marvel, just sort of a character that the reason they exist is to watch, to observe, to learn, and so I like how a lot of the different elements on this mock really tie back to that concept, whether it's the idea that his head is this gigantic eye, or even the idea that there's kind of a lot of other sort of subtle eye-like imagery across this mock, whether it's sort of the like waist design, how it has that sort of larger dish element with a sort of trans pink element there, that little 1x1 pyramid piece there for just, I don't know, that's how the waist looks, but it kind of is a little bit reminiscent of an eye. Then you kind of see the middle of those three-pronged fingers there. Not really an eye design, but kind of, Then you've got all those different black ball joints around the sort of eyebrow and underneath of his larger main eye, which, again, I don't think they're intended as eyes, but they kind of look a bit like eyes, And there's a variety of other different studs and dishes across the mock that, again, subtly represent eyes. And so I kind of like the idea that even though he may only have one specific eye, which is that larger big eye on his head, I like the fact there's a lot of little subtle stuff that's very reminiscent of eyes, which kind of implies the idea that, I don't know, maybe this is some sort of cosmic deity, big sort of celestial, eternal being. And I love the idea that people kind of gaze upon it. It's like, is it looking at me right now? I can't tell. Like, it's big eyes looking out towards the stars, but are those other things eyes? Like, I don't know. I kind of like the sort of trickery of that and how that can kind of like tie back to some backstory or just general ideas for the character. I don't know. I think that's really cool. I think it's really, really distinct, different, and just really clever character design. I love that. Again, like I said, even if those aren't eyes, just the idea that they sort of represent it or are very similar to it, I think it goes a long way. I really like that. Something else that goes a long way and that I really like is the leg design on this mock. Just being this big mesh of random CCBS bone pieces. It makes it look like this weird, almost sort of symbiote venom style like sentient liquid alien thing that just forms the sort of bulk of his legs and to some degree his arms as well. And it could even be that all the blue is like clothing or armor that he's put on, and his body is just entirely made up of this black like sludge or like ooze or like tentacles or liquid or whatever it is. I just love how that looks, and I also love how simplistic that is. It's literally just a big mesh of those bone pieces, which I was sorting the other day. You might be able to hear this. That is the whole bunch of my bone element pieces. I have a lot of them. And that's just from buying some of the sets. I can even buy every Hero Factory set or CCBS related set, you know. You're going to come across a lot of them because they came in pretty much every CCBS set. So you might be able to do that exact same leg design. And it's as simple as just, wrapping them together, finding a way to connect them at the top, and just, shaping them to create this really beautiful kind of sludge-like effect. I think it's really creative, really clever, and doesn't use a lot of pieces. And probably uses pieces you have good access to as well. So really, really like that. I still love, too, the kind of general consistency, shaping, and the overall look of the armor on the body, using some of those panel pieces and different dishes and other things. Really beautiful, smooth textures to it, and the sort of black details and the trans-orange details give it this really nice, like, armored look and ornate look. It's just really nice. Yeah, a lot to love about this mock here. Really, really well done. Let's move on to another mock. This one is built by Sam, and Sam is 8 years old as well, so really awesome to see a younger builder of the newer generation stepping in and playing with Bionicle pieces there. Always an absolute pleasure to see. And this mock is called... Where is it? Why am I not seeing it on my... Oh, there it is. It's called the Shredder. Yeah. So, I was sent an email by Sam's dad, actually, and he showed me this mock first off. Sam wanted to submit this because he's a fan of the show. So, hey, awesome. Great to meet you, good sir. And, hey, I thought this was a fantastic mock. I was all ready to feature it and everything. I thought it looked good. Had a nice sort of sinister color scheme, a cool weapon, inclusion of the chain as well with that little trans-orange bit at the bottom. I don't know what that is, but I think it looks super cool. And, hey, you don't need to know what something is, but if it looks cool, that's all that matters. But then Sam's dad sent me a follow-up email and just said, I asked Sam, hey, maybe put a few more details on the mock. And so he updated a bit and then sent it back over. So, like, first off, I just love the idea that Sam's, taking some criticism from someone he trusts and saying, hey, you know what? Yeah, I can improve the mock. And then adding a few more things towards it and then making the mock, which I think was already really good, making it even better. So, really, really solid work, and awesome to hear that you're listening to criticism and looking to improve stuff, because that's honestly such an important trait for any builder, any artist, any creative person. So, really awesome to see that you took that on board and really followed through with it too. You did a great job. So no, seriously, awesome stuff. Let's actually talk a little bit about the mock itself now. So, in one of these pictures here, you can kind of see some of those gully claw pieces in blue, kind of forming this interesting kind of crest on the back of the mock. And I actually kind of spoke about this in the last episode of the Bionicle Inspiration series. But I love the idea of adding something on the back of a mock, whether it's wings or just some sort of interesting detail, just to give a mock just something extra. Sometimes you build a humanoid character and that's all it needs to be, just a very sort of stock standard human-like build. But sometimes it's missing something and you don't want to put wings on it because that's not the kind of design you're looking for. But something like this, just this sort of interesting kind of crest or little bits of further detailing or other sort of ornate niceness that you can kind of put on the back there, can really take it to another level, make it look a lot cooler. So personally, I really like that. And it's like I said before, it doesn't need to be anything specific. Like, you could look at that and be like, well, what is it? It's like, well, he's just got some cool spikes on his back, because why not? He's the Shredder. He can do what he wants, I love that idea. I think that's, I don't know, just, I think it's always nice when you're playing with stuff, whether it's Lego or just anything creative, to sometimes just abandon, like, logic and just sort of add something just for the sake of it, Sometimes you don't need to justify your choices. Sometimes it can be perfectly fine to just do something because it looks nice, or just because, I don't know, something inside you's telling you to do it. Always good to listen to that voice. And hey, see what sort of cool stuff you can make. I think this is a great example of that, just a really interesting little bit of sugar and spice, and it makes everything look really, really nice. So overall, a lot more sort of well-armored, kind of menacing look to this character. He really sort of, I don't know, kind of reminds me a bit of some sort of, samurai or some sort of just armored warrior with a big old sword ready to head into battle, and I think that's pretty dang cool. So really, really solid work there, my boy Sam. Really love your work. Really keen to see some more stuff from you in the future. Let's move on now to another MOC, one that I really do enjoy. This is by Trick MOCs, that's Trick with a 1, and this is called an Ice Rahi MOC. So I think the general kind of look of this, the general sort of character design of this is really solid, really cool. There's a picture here of him standing next to a Borok, and I love the fact that this MOC seems very reminiscent of Borok, just in the way it's hunched, how it does have that little more sort of rounded ball-like shape to it. But it also has those big sort of icicle-like spikes on its back, which, before I continue with that, I love the fact that those spikes have a different color to them, and the fact this is an ice Rahi, so those spikes kind of look like they're made of ice. I think that's a fantastic little detail. I love that. Really nice to kind of link it back to the element in a very subtle way there. I think that's cool. But what I was saying before, it's Borok-like in shape, but it's also kind of Rahi, Rahkshi-like in shape, because it has that spine on the back. Its head almost sort of looks a little bit similar to a Rahkshi, and to some degree so do the legs and the arms, Might be a little bit of a push with the other sort of limbs and the head there, but, certainly a sort of larger spike could be reminiscent of the Rahkshi, or not at all. But regardless, I do kind of still love that idea of linking a kind of general character design back to other things that currently exist in the same world as that creature. Because, stuff like, I don't know, evolution, or just sort of how certain animals even in our world kind of can, fit into just looking very similar to one another, or fit into various, distinctions, like these are reptiles, these are mammals, these are whatevers, So I like the fact that there are very subtle, very, very subtle little elements that do link back to other pre-existing things within the Bionicle universe. I think that's really nice. And I like too that, like I said, it's not directly like, oh, that's clearly a Borok. It's not. It kind of has taken its own unique form. But hey, still pretty cool, still pretty unique, pretty different. It's very nice indeed. One little thing I really like about this is the photo here where he has a krana in his hand. And then another photo where he's just straight up eating it, because why not, And I love that, because I remember when I was younger, I always wanted Bionicle sets to come with some sort of like accessories, some sort of like MacGuffin, some sort of like treasure, or just sort of something that they could be kind of looking for. I get the idea that was often masks, but I always just like the idea of like, oh, what if they came across some sort of, other artifact that's not a mask, or like a key or a book, or, they found some food or something, And so I like the idea that he does just have this little additional accessory here. He's like an action figure, and you get, an additional little accessory that comes with him that fits the character. I think it's just a fun little addition, and it works well in these pictures. And I love that he's eating it too. I don't know. I feel like that says a lot about the character. I think that also is it's just really fun and funny. I like the fact there's just little studs on the floor there. Like he's got some crumbs on the floor, I don't know. I think it's just a really cool thing. And I love too, as well, like I said before, the how I always kind of wanted accessories with the Bionicle sets that I bought. Nowadays, with a lot of system sets, it's not that hard to do that. You could easily take certain minifigure utensils, like some of the keys from Harry Potter sets, or I'm sure even some of the different, like chainsaws or hammers or tools, all those sort of random minifigure elements. Wouldn't be hard to repurpose those into a Bionicle MOC and just go to town with it, So take a look at some of the different accessories you might have around you and see how that could feed into the character design, feed into the character that you want to communicate or make, or it might just be a good little inspiration point, or hey, maybe a MOC you've currently built could really use some sort of fun little accessories. That might be something to think about at least. And sure, it's just a krana, it's not really a major accessory or whatever, but I don't know, it's rare to see a MOC with some sort of other thing that's not directly linked to it, so it's just a welcome addition. I like that a lot. So really solid MOC there by Trick MOCs. Let's move on to another MOC. This one's called The Spacewalker, and it's by Destructicon. So Destructicon here, he is 10 years old, I believe the email said. Yes, he is. And he's built a very nice little MOC here. One of the things that I really, really like about this is the fact that it uses that windscreen piece in trans blue and kind of covers the Rahkshi head there. Again, hey, by the way, using Rahkshi heads, making unique, very unique and distinct characters. They're nice. See how Rahkshis just have evolved and become their own thing? Now, Rahkshis are in space, walking around in spacesuits. Look how far they've come. I love that. I love that a lot. But windshields and Rahkshi heads, or any kind of Bionicle mask, really solid idea, really great idea to combine the two of them together, because it can create this, like I said before, spacesuit or sort of heads-up display, or just some sort of, I don't know, protective armoring or helmet or whatever. It's distinct, it's different, it's unique, it's just really nice. And I think that trans blue and that orange there, they flow very nicely into one another. It's just a really solid color scheme. So very nice to see. I love too how it pops up in one of these photos here. And really nice to see him with a pretty solid and sizable gun there as well. Really, really nice. I like too that the head is that white Rahkshi color and the rest of him is sort of orange and everything. Kind of gives the impression that he does have a spacesuit on. And underneath him is, his natural Rahkshi skeleton, hide, skin, whatever. I don't know, exoskeleton? I don't know, what do you call the skin of a Rahkshi? Is it armor? Is it just metal? I don't know. But hey, I think that's some really cool color blocking there. So very nicely done indeed. Overall though, yeah, like I said, a really unique concept for a mock in general here. It may not actually be specifically a Rahkshi, but hey, it's using that Rahkshi head. Always nice to see Rahkshi heads being used. They're a pretty versatile and helpful piece, actually. So yeah, really, really solid mock here. Love your work. Let's move on to the final mock in this episode. It's by Obliv, and this is called Shepherd MDL-122 Everell. Something like that. So there's something really unique about this mock that I really enjoy. The idea that it does have this... It's quite similar to the Seer that Morningstar mocks built before. It does have this very godlike, ethereal nature to it. Very sort of celestial in nature, It's this unique combination of a cape, plants growing out of his head, this white and gold color scheme that seems very kind of regal and ethereal, strong, powerful. And he also has this really funky, weird staff as well, which has this sort of circle shape to it, which, again, just sort of implies this sort of mythic, historical, magical sense to it. This sort of beautiful combination of all this sort of random stuff put together becomes this really beautiful, well-organized set that starts to create this really eclectic character, this really ethereal, godlike character, like I spoke about before. And I love that. I love this fantastic combination of different things here that work really well together to create a very kind of quirky, different character. It's really nice, So yeah, I love that. I love the idea that he has this sort of crown with plants growing out of it. That's just really unique and different. And one little detail that I like that I think really ties into that idea of him looking very regal and godlike is take a look at his torso. He has that gold wheel piece there, which is, again, seen on the wrists. And then on the torso, there is that larger gear piece, which again also appears on the wrists. So one, that's some nice sort of visual consistency, as parts of the mock are very similar in nature and very consistent, which is always really, really good. That's always something you want to pay attention to and do your best to put on a mock because, everything kind of ties together and looks more unified and nice. It's just more visually pleasing. But also, just the inclusion of the gold in those gears does imply this sense of age, maybe a bit of history, and it does seem a little bit more kind of like, mechanical, and a lot of kind of Bionicle characters can be more mechanical and robotic in nature. So the idea that he does have these exposed gears on him could even imply this sense that he's quite old, like really, really old, old just because, I don't know, you can kind of see all the underworkings of his body. How we as humans have wrinkles, maybe robots, when they get older, they just sort of rust and shed their skin and you can just see the gears exposed, and so maybe that's sort of similar to this, but yet he still does have very nice shiny new armor. So this interesting kind of juxtaposition between this geared texture and this really sort of shiny silver smooth armor does create this really nice, overall look. Everything is looking more ancient, unique, different. It's cool. It's really cool. I don't know, man. It's a little bit harder to articulate exactly what I'm referring to. But honestly, I think he's done a really, really bang-up job here of mixing a bunch of different textures, bunch of different concepts and ideas, but managing to make it all very consistently match up. Nothing feels kind of out of place or really weird or sort of just it's not like anything isn't working. Everything's working very well together here. It's great to see. So yeah, really solid mock here, good sir. Love what you've done, and I love what everyone's done in this fan-submitted mocks episode of the Bionicle Inspiration series. So like I said, if you want to feature your own stuff on the show, you can do so through the email that's currently on your screen. Submit whatever you want on there, pictures that you've got, whatever sort of information you want as well. Put it in the email, and then I'll add it to the list once I get the email, and one day it'll appear on the show. Don't be afraid. You don't need to, know what the next theme is for the episode or anything like that. You can just submit whatever you got, and I'll base an episode around it for the most part. So there you go. Additionally, there's links in the description to all the mocks that you saw in today's episode, although I slightly lie when I say that. There's links to like 2 of them, because not everyone in a fan-submitted mocks always provides a link, which is okay. They don't have to, but often with a link or 2 there, you can always go and check out some of the other stuff that they have done. So be sure to check the links that are available in the description below. Speaking of links, there's links to my own social media, so if you want to check out that Blacktron mech that I spoke about before, or if you just want to see some of the other stuff that I've got going on, that is the place to look. So check it out over there. All right, that's it for the Bionicle Inspiration series this week, guys. I'll see you next week in episode 191. Thank you very much for listening. Bye for now.